Welcome to the historic Ocean House, a luxurious hotel that pays homage to New England's golden age of hospitality. With timeless elegance and renewed civility, this treasured resort is the setting for our special broadcast of the Ocean House Author Series. Each program features nationally best-selling and award-winning authors in a salon-style conversation, hosted by Ocean House owner, actress, and best-selling author Deborah Goodrich Royce. WCRI is pleased to partner with the Ocean House to present this ongoing series, which brings you the best and the brightest of the literary world. Now, let's take you to the Ocean House.
Annabel Monaghan is the author of LibraryReads pick Same Time Next Summer and Indie Next and LibraryReads pick Nora Goes Off Script, as well as 2 young adult novels and Does This Volvo Make My Butt Look Big? A selection of laugh out loud columns that appeared in the Huffington Post, The Week, and the Rye Record. She currently lives in Greenwich, Connecticut with her family. Welcome, Annabel. Alix Strauss is a lifestyle trend writer who appears on national morning and talk shows. She's a New York Times contributor, and her articles have been published in Marie Claire, Time, and Entertainment Weekly, among many other publications. She is the author of The Joy of Funerals, Have I Got a Guy for You, and Death Becomes Them, unearthing the suicides of the brilliant, the famous, and the notorious. Welcome, Alix. Annabel and Alix will be in conversation tonight with Deborah Goodrich Royce. Deborah's thrillers examine puzzles of identity. Reef Road, which Alix was holding up, was a national bestseller and was named one of the best books of 2023 by Kirkus Reviews and was an Indie Next pick by the American Booksellers Association. Ruby Falls won the Zibby Award for Best Plot Twist, and Finding Mrs. Ford was hailed by Forbes, Book Riot, and Good Morning America's Best of lists. She began as an actress on All My Children and in multiple films before transitioning to the role of story editor at Miramax Films, developing Emma and early versions of Chicago and A Wrinkle in Time. With her husband Chuck, Deborah restored the Avon Theater, Ocean House Hotel, Deer Mountain Inn, United Theater, Martin House Books, and numerous Main Street revitalization projects in both Rhode Island and the Catskills. If you have questions during our question section, please raise your hand. We'll walk a mic to you so we can capture your questions for folks listening in the future. And without any further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Annabel Monaghan, Alix Strauss, and Deborah Goodrich Royce.
Wait, Lindsay, don't go away. Lindsay will not be with us for a little while. She has something else she needs to do. I don't know what it is, but thank you. I think we all need to give a huge round of applause to Lindsay. And we will see you soon, my dear. Thank you for everything.
With a +1.
Yes. All right. So I am beyond excited to have the two of you here. And one of the adventures is putting together 2 authors. And often you know in advance exactly how their novels will dovetail. And sometimes you don't know until you read them. And this was the most wonderful case of discovery of how you two go together. So let us start, as we always do, with you, Annabel. Tell us what this book is about.
I think that we're going to end up saying that it's a romance about death. I think that's where you're going with it.
I'm going there.
So it is the story of Allie Morris, who is a professional organizer whose life and home are both a total disaster. She's recently separated, she's a mother of 3, and she's grieving the loss of her mom. And she gets it in her head that she's going to get unstuck and move on by having a summer romance with this adorable guy who is just in town for a little while. So that's the setup to the story. It ends up being a story about grief. It's a story about getting unstuck. It's a story about letting go of a lot of our stuff that we've been carrying around for a long time, be that physical or emotional stuff.
Well said.
Well, thank you.
You've done this before. I will digress.
First day out. First day.
Annabel and I went on tour together last year, and we did so many events together, and she writes rom-coms and I write thrillers. But we actually wanted to each give the other person's speech because we memorized them.
We did.
Could have been a wrinkle.
And then there was the one day in Georgia where we separately show up for an event that we're doing together in the same dress.
Yes, we did that.
And no one in the room was wearing a dress besides the 2 of us. So it was just the 2 of us. In the same dress.
In fairness, it was the same cut, different fabric. In fairness.
Yes.
Not exactly. Okay, Alex. I'm going to you, Alex.
I'm fascinated and wondering if you can do each other's backwards or in Spanish.
Well,
Not in Spanish.
yeah.
But I know her story.
Probably not. Would you talk a little bit about the joy of funerals?
I guess then I would say it's also a romance. What did you say it was a romance?
About death.
Sure, I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Why not? I'm going to ducktail on that. Romance about death. Different kind of death, different kind of romance. The Joy of Funerals is about a funeral attending junkie, if you will. Main character Nina, who goes to other people's funerals because she can't connect with people in her real life. And so she connects intensely with the people who are mourning. It is we like to call it a novel in stories. So in the first 8 short stories, someone has died. And you really get this fascinating view of how people grieve differently in these very strange, strong, wonderful, bright women. And in the novella that connect the previous stories, you now go to all the funerals you've been told about, but never actually have been to. So Nina gives you the second version of everything you thought you knew, but didn't know so much of.
I'm going to stick with you, Alex, for a
Sure,
minute.
stick
On
away.
that point, I'm not going anywhere. So yes, your characters do grieve differently.
Yes.
You're, and I.
It's all comedy here, clearly.
What might I say? May I say anything?
Yeah, you please. All bets are off.
There is a character who loses her husband, and her grieving process is hanging around the cemetery and seducing men who are there, recently bereaved men, there in the cemetery.
Stop
Deborah,
it.
you can just say it. She has sex with men in the cemetery.
On the ground.
We open with that story.
No, right there in the cemetery.
I'm going there, on the cold, hard ground, because it's winter.
When else are you supposed to have sex in a cemetery?
So, I want to talk a little
He's there too. We like to think God is there too. Why not?
So let's talk about process. So, and each one of your characters has unusual thought processes. So,
Yes.
was this sort of...
I need to put a few things out there. So as much as I like the Meisner technique.
So talk about that process.
Yeah, I have never been to a funeral I wasn't invited to, or that I knew the person of, just so we get a few things on the record.
Yeah, good to know.
Not only have I not had sex since COVID, I have not, nor will I intend to have sex in a cemetery. I will say that I did visit some cemeteries, and there was a process of feeling the dirt and feeling the leaves, and there was some experiential moments, but that's the fiction. I mean, I think there's something, and I don't know what your process is. I'm sure it's definitely not going to cemeteries and having sex, but I definitely think there is this what if. What if I had a character whose husband died? How do I now show her depth of grief? Mm-hmm. What if she went, first just nonchalant, and she did not go that first time she goes to the cemetery. There's no thought of, I'm going to have sex. She does it very innocently until that becomes her way of feeling something. And then eventually, well, I don't want to give it away.
No, don't give it away.
But they all have, I love someone so in it already, like, don't do it, don't give it away, damn it, stop talking. So they all do grieve. Some of them are funny. One woman goes out on a date, it's an awful blind date. He ends up dead, and she's like, that would have been my man. But, but it's dark. I mean, I'm not a chick lit. I'm not a chick lit happy rom-com. You probably have mastered it and do it very, very well. That I am all dark. Well,
yeah, but now,
entertaining, but
yes,
dark.
Annabel, you've gone a little dark in this, and so Spoiler, my mother died in March, so I have been spending time in cemeteries and doing all of this. So we're very on theme for me this year.
This was great.
Yeah, so Annabel, your character, Allie, does exactly what I do. And I'm going to ask you about you, because I know you lost your mother before I did. She talks to her mom.
Yes, she does. And I just want to say, because sometimes we talk about this and I leave thinking, do people think my book's a sad book? It's not sad.
No.
Her mother's dead, and my mother died 15 years ago, which, just to give you some perspective, like if I had written this book 6 months after my mom died, it would be a really sad book. It's a very light touch about grief and about how people who love us don't really leave us because of all they've deposited into us the whole time that they were here. But I will say, Allie, and I just started writing it this way, she gets in her car and talks to her mom out loud all the time, which I do several times a week. And I get answers, but it's not because I'm hearing voices from dead people. It's like, I just know what she'd say. Mm-hmm. Like, I get in the car, I'm like, can you believe that? And I hear her say, he's the worst. Like, I know what she would have said because I knew her for 39 years. It feels really good to talk to her. Does it feel good for you to do it?
It feels so good. So this is very recent for me, and I'm still, a friend of mine said, you're in that liminal space where the veil is very thin. So I'm still there in it, and I feel like I get weird signs from my mother all the time. And I'm always looking for very profound and majestic signs. And they're kind of funny, weird signs. I was going to sign at the closing of her house recently, and I was asking her for a sign, and I pulled into this title office in suburban Florida in a strip mall. And I walked into the room, and there was a huge vase of Chinese lanterns. Does anybody know what Chinese lanterns are? For 40 years, my mother has nagged me to grow Chinese lanterns because she grew them in the 70s, and they were kind of a novelty then. And I was like, all right, already. Chinese lanterns, because I haven't seen them for 40 years.
I love
Nobody has Chinese lanterns. So you could take that as a sign, or you could take it as a coincidence. It's nothing kind of technicolor or spooky.
I found the signs get louder. So just wait.
Just you wait.
Just you wait. We'll see.
So, Alix, I want to go back to process. So stringing together, you've written actually a very complicated book with all of these different voices. And how did you write all that? Was it over time? Did you create these things separately and then put it all together? How did you do it?
That's a great question. So I love puzzles, and I also love mysteries, and I love thrillers. The novel started with an essay that I wrote for the New York Times on why I like funerals. And it's a very jolting statement, but I think once you explain it to people, so I'm an only child, but I'm the only child ever in my family, as far back as you can trace. Everybody has had more than one child except my parents, who could have had several and decided not. I'm not even sure I'm theirs. So I was telling Deborah earlier, I think my mother was at the hospital for a paper cut and leaned into a window because she thought she was going shopping, and she goes, I'll take that one. And they gave it to her. So I had written this essay about why I like funerals because it was the only time I really got to see family. And they felt like reunions. Yes, there's always one less family member generally, but at 13, and I was very close to my grandmother. At 13, it was an extraordinary experience. I learned who I was connected to. I learned that there was more people that I had never met. And I was fascinated how we were all grieving together and how intimate that was, and the community. And so I thought, well, what if I had this character that goes to other people's funerals? But prior to that, I had been working on some short fiction, and I noticed that everybody had died in the stories. And then I thought, well, 3 or 4 as a trend journalist, you're off and running. So then I thought, well, 20 years ago, no one was really playing with form and function and fiction. And I thought, this is just one big puzzle. And I love the fact that I think in life we meet people and we get one version of them, but there are other versions of people, and I love the idea of thinking you knew something, but yet you didn't. Mm-hmm. And so, and loving puzzles, I'm like, how do I put this all together? And so
I love puzzles too. Yeah, so
because you write about thrillers, they're all that
all
you must.
puzzles.
Yeah. Do you like puzzles?
I love puzzles.
Puzzles.
So Annabel, you have spoken eloquently and hilariously of a forced bed rest when you watched a bunch of Hallmark movies.
True story.
Which triggered you for this latest part of your career. You've had a run of bestseller after bestseller in the rom-com space for a number of years now. So please, if anybody doesn't know this story, it's worth telling,
Which
worth
is
retelling.
a talent too, to really write a good rom-com.
Absolutely.
Is really, it's
Thank
a
you.
talent.
You know, I'm not totally sure my books are rom-coms.
Not
But they
a
call them,
talent.
here's the thing, that people buy romance novels, like they fly off the shelves, so my books are on the romance table.
Oh.
But like, I'm not 100% sure. Anyways, the story for how this all started is I was stuck in bed, and I started watching the Hallmark Channel. And I watched maybe 3 movies, which is 6 hours of your life. 2.5 hours of that is commercials.
Right.
And I was like, I'm addicted. I can't stop watching. And it was the same movie every single time, like over and over again. And I thought, I need to get this job. Like, I should be writing. This is so simple. Like, these are the simplest stories. Like, you have a small town, and she's, you know, got this big house because she makes cupcakes. And then this guy rolls in. It's like, it's the same movie over and over again. And so I just kept watching them, and I started wondering, who writes these things? And my idea for my first book was Nora Goes Off Script, was to write a book about a made-for-TV romance writer who's never actually been in love. And then to run her through like the biggest possible romance you could ever have, and like see how that kind of adds up or compares to what she's been writing. So that's how that started. But it's funny that you asked the question, because that's also kind of how I got in the flow of like how a romance goes, is because I watched 100 Hallmark movies. Except that in the books I write, you can't end with the first kiss. Like in a Hallmark movie, the first kiss is in its
Oh yeah, no,
minute
you
1:19.
go pretty far beyond that.
Yeah, no, you have to have the first kiss like in the middle so that we can have a little more towards the end.
Right.
We'll take a short break and be back with the Ocean House Author Series here on WCRI.
The cold and blustery days of winter, when New Englanders are holed up with nowhere to go and nowhere to be, are the perfect time to curl up with a good book. If you or someone in your life that enjoys whiling away the hours by getting lost in the pages of a novel, why not present them with a book by hotelier, actress and nationally best-selling and award-winning author Deborah Goodrich Royce. Start with Deborah's latest thriller, Reef Road, a Publishers Weekly, Good Morning America, and American Booksellers Association pick. This true crime-inspired novel of suspense and high society in Palm Beach probes unhealed generational scars and a wrenching and original work of fiction. To learn more about the fascinating life and times of the author and her other page-turning mysteries, Finding Mrs. Ford and Ruby Falls, visit DeborahGoodrichRoyce.com.
And we're back with the Ocean House Author Series on WCRI.
I want to talk about place. You both have a very strong sense of place. And I think in the books that I really get going on and I can't put down, I feel where I am, whether it's a psychiatrist's office, whether it's a cemetery, whether it's this small town that's kind of a stand-in for Rye. So why don't you talk a little bit about how you create place?
It's a great question. I grew up in New York, and this felt like a very New York I saw the cemeteries, I saw the funerals, I knew where Nina was from, I knew where I was going. Place is probably not as important as some of the character development or the story itself, but I'm also a big believer in as long as you can justify the decision. So if I had to move a character to, say, California, I would have to justify it somehow. So I'm more about justification probably than sense of place.
Interesting.
But I knew that obviously for Nina, I mean, I could be as creative as possible as long as I justified it. So one of the places where they're holding a vigil is at this bar that no longer exists in Manhattan called the Lore Fish Bar. But I justified it by the guy was an avid fisherman, and he had a boat, and they, when they go on this awful date, he talks about the boat tremendously, and so I needed a reason to put that there rather than, say, a funeral home. So for me, it is really all about justification.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. And Annabel?
I really like real estate. And you can really buy whatever you want when you're writing a book. So I like to start with a house, and I like sort of like exploring what's going on internally with people versus what they're showing to the world. So I like examining the house that people chose and what kind of disrepair it's in versus the problems that they're having. And then I like to create impossible situations. Like my book last summer was called Same Time Next Summer. And it's a fairly regular family that has a house on the water in Long Island. Doesn't happen, but I made up a town where it does happen.
Right.
And that was really fun for me to sort of live out this fantasy that the world was still, 1976 Montauk.
We're a family that's not of great wealth.
Yes, they're just
Yeah.
people. And they live on the water, and I really enjoyed having them living on the water. It was nice for me, yeah. And this book, Summer Romance, I actually was very much into the story and the plot, and I wasn't thinking at all about the setting. And without meaning to, I just set it in my town. Like, it's a different kind of town. I was living in Rye, New York for 20 years. It's not exactly Rye, but it's located exactly where it is.
Right.
And that just all kind of worked out for her character.
So I'm going to stick with you, Annabel, for a minute. So characters' quirks. So you, I think one of the things that hooks the reader in, you take these things like Allie has a ritual with her children at the beginning of every summer that was a ritual that her mother had with her. And I was very moved by that. Would you talk about that?
Yes, so she and her mother would get up at sunrise on the first day of the summer, and they would go to the beach and they would watch the sun come up. And just before the sun came up, they would shout out their wishes for the summer. So when she's young, it's, I want to learn how to swim, or I want to score a goal, or later, I hope someone kisses me. And as the sun comes up, they shout, cheers to a champagne summer. That's what they say. And then when they do this with her children, and then when her mother dies, it's sort of sad to do it. So they shift onto paddle boards, so it's like a little more of an adventure. But they keep the tradition going, and it's just sort of a way to touch back with her mom, who's gone, and I wanted to see her children remembering her mom. Mm-hmm. And I also like the idea of setting intentions for things. Like, time goes by so fast. The summer's over. I don't know what happened this summer. But I do like this idea of marking a time and setting an intention and saying it out loud in front of the people who are going to be around you.
Mm-hmm. It does go by fast. It hit me this year that last year was my mother's last summer, and I spent half the summer annoyed with her, and now I'm annoyed with myself.
Yeah.
I'm kind of joking, but yes, it's a great reminder. I want to go on to characters' quirks with you. So you have a character who is very intentional to an extreme degree over getting the right makeup artist for her mother. She's going to have an open coffin for her mom, and you take her intentionality to a very extreme. an extreme level. So I sense with you, you're really pushing the limits. You're just, you have a spark of a thought and you just go with it.
I don't know if it's a spark or it's a desire or it's I wouldn't call it a compulsion either. It is, I think it comes from need. I think it comes from loneliness, from need, from the hope of intensity or intimacy or connection. I think that's what fuels so many of my characters, which I'm also fascinated by. I think when the novel first came out 20 years ago, and it's been reissued, no one was talking about grief and loneliness. I mean, for us to even just be having this conversation,
it's weird.
It's weird, but it's so right. Why were we not having this 20 years ago? So, and I think it's fascinating. We've all lost a parent. And I just think for us to be out here, and not that it's bold, but I think it's very thoughtful. I think we don't talk about grief enough. I think people die. This is life. We have loss. And I think after a pandemic especially, for us to be talking about this and, to be so, this is the moment to talk about it. So I think I was just really early to market on something, and the world is sort of caught up with the joy of funerals. The joy being that this main character found a connection in loss, but there is a celebration in someone's life.
In the gathering.
Yes, in honoring the dead, in honoring the deceased. I light a candle for my father who passed away 14 years ago. On his birthday, on Father's Day, on the day he died. We did not have a great relationship, but there is this sense of I'm still his daughter. He still existed. And so I love that we can come here. I don't think we would have had this conversation 5 years ago. I think this is look how edgy we are.
No, I think it is, I think I'm so steeped in it now, and what I'm reminded of, it's important to take the time to make note of human beings.
Yes.
I walk through old cemeteries and I'll see a gravestone from a girl who died in 1740 or whatever, and I give that person a thought. Not that it's anything that changes, but it's just, the person existed.
Yes, it's so important. That's how you keep someone's memory alive. I mean, that you talk to your mom all the time is so, she's with you.
Yeah.
I mean, she's gone, but she's not gone.
The thing I'm thinking is, I also think it's really good for us to talk about death and to talk about the people we're grieving, so that we remember that we're going to die. I don't know why it always comes as just such a surprise to people. I'm 100. I don't know what's happening. Why are they saying I'm dying? It's like, of course you're dying. But we need to get used to the idea.
Right. Well, I think in our modern world, we've really got a locked elbow distance with it. We offload all of it to hospitals, to funeral homes, everything. I think 100 years ago, people lived much more closely with the reality. But I want to go on to another aspect. You've each written fiction and nonfiction.
Yes.
You've published fiction and nonfiction. And I'd like you, Annabel, to talk a little bit about the difference, what each does for you, and what you think you can do with each format.
So the nonfiction that I've written are just essays. I wrote a column for my local paper, and it got picked up a bunch of places, and then I put it into a book, which is the Volvo book. And those essays they're nonfiction, of course, but they're about my life. So they're just like about ha-has that happened in my house. And that was a very important part of me developing my voice as a writer. And it was great nonfiction for me to write because I don't research and I'm never right about anything. So for me to write nonfiction and just it's my life, it's right. I could never write the history of something that happened because I don't really care. But before I wrote that nonfiction, I wrote fiction for young adults. And I was really in the voice of writing for young adults and in my 17-year-old mindset. And writing that nonfiction got me my grown-up voice, to be honest. Like, I became comfortable talking about things that are actually really important to me. And that was the gateway drug to writing for adults now. But I don't do it anymore. So, which is so interesting. Like, I wrote that column for 10 years, and I just stopped it like it was a bad habit. It just feels different. It's like a totally different skill to do.
Right. And how about you, Alex?
Well, if you think The Joy of Funerals is dark, hold on to your hat.
Oh, God.
So my nonfiction was about the most notable suicides of our time.
Right.
But in a pop culture overview of the most famous, notorious, fascinating. So you are looking at, so I'm, we should have a podcast because I'm all, I love research, and the research of nonfiction was.
You're perfect for me.
Yeah, I mean, we could just spin off, and it would be great.
You can team up.
You guys heard it here first.
Yes. Nonfiction is so much. It's a different kind of rhythm. It's a different kind of cadence, and I think you can sell nonfiction on a proposal. So. And there is a real organization to nonfiction, at least for me. And I'm working on my next nonfiction, which is shocking, about death. It'll be about, but our mortality, so it'll be first-person essays or first-person pieces in some sense on all the different, so I'll go to North Carolina to weave my own coffin. I'm going to go to the Day of the Dead Festival and ride on a parade. I'm going to take an obituary writing class with my mother. So it's an examination of not only how we're doing death differently, because we are in a death, grief, death positive, death, morbid moment.
Did you just make up death positive?
No, it is a real thing. There is a death
That's the
positive
best thing I've ever heard.
and a death curiosity moment. All these things, and the doulas are having fights with the funeral
doulas,
directors.
yeah.
Yes, because they're all in different. Trust me, it is a scene.
But no, are you going to go look at, like in New Orleans, where they do sort of the staging?
No, but I'm
Well,
going to a medium, and we're going to.
But no, they do this thing where, I don't know what they do with you eventually, but at the funeral, you're kind of staged. If you played poker, you're staged with the cards.
They don't do that. They don't do that anymore so much.
Oh, that's
yeah. Yes, they don't do that.
Oh.
But I am going to Parting Stones, where they make you into stones, and they're beautiful. They're fascinating. Wait, I'm going there with it. It's fascinating.
Okay, I'm really just opening my mind tonight to like a world.
So much here.
The makeup artist.
Yes, yeah. I'm going to get my makeup done with a mortician.
Do you remember?
Stop it.
Wasn't that Cher's job in the Karen Silkwood movie with Meryl Streep?
It could have been. I
It
like
was her
Cher.
job.
It's possible. I'm going to call Cher.
No, Meryl Streep worked in the factory.
Because she was Karen Silkwood.
That's right, and her girlfriend kept making her paler and paler.
We'll take a short break and be back with the Ocean House Author Series here on WCRI.
The cold and blustery days of winter, when New Englanders are holed up with nowhere to go and nowhere to be, are the perfect time to curl up with a good book. If you or someone in your life that enjoys whiling away the hours by getting lost in the pages of a novel, why not present them with a book by hotelier, actress, and nationally best-selling and award-winning author Deborah Goodrich Royce. Start with Deborah's latest thriller, Reef Road, a Publishers Weekly, Good Morning America, and American Booksellers Association pick. This true crime-inspired novel of suspense and high society in Palm Beach probes unhealed generational scars and a wrenching and original work of fiction. To learn more about the fascinating life and times of the author and her other page-turning mysteries, Finding Mrs. Ford and Ruby Falls, visit DeborahGoodrichRoyce.com.
And we're back with the Ocean House Author Series on WCRI.
Okay,
This is my
hold on.
favorite night, by the way.
Yes, we're having
hands down.
so much fun. Okay, wait, Julie Gerstenblatt, right here, fellow author. Here comes the mic.
Thank you.
Daughters of Nantucket, Julie Gerstenblatt.
Is it on?
It's
Thank you. Hi. First of all, you and I really need to talk.
We need to talk.
Okay, yeah, because I'll tell you later. But obsessed with the idea of death and all the writing about it. But I have a question for Annabel, who I've known for 15 or so years. We met at a writing workshop in New York. Can you tell me about your charm bracelet and how it
Yes.
might relate to your amazing
Okay.
third novel, Summer
You're
Romance?
starting to seem like a plant.
I know. No, but I saw it on your wrist. I totally
Yeah.
forgot about it. I read the book when it came out, and I forgot about it because I have a charm bracelet, and I totally would have worn it tonight, except
Yeah.
I forgot about it. But I saw it waving on your wrist
Okay.
and thought I could ask about it.
So few cute things about Julie Gerstenblatt. First of all, Daughters of Nantucket, you will love this book. It is great.
Yes, great book.
And
it is
people
great.
do die, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
on theme.
Yeah, no, tons of death. There's fire. It's so good. And also, I think it's hilarious that you think that was 15 years ago. It was 22 years ago. That's how old we are.
started kindergarten. It's not 22 years.
No, because my book came out in 2012.
Yeah, but we
Okay. Anyway, so
We are not mad.
we're older than
We're
you
just
think.
writers.
We're old. Allie's mother, who's dead, she was a jewelry designer, and Allie had a charm bracelet and her mother would design a little charm for everything big that happened in her life. And frankly, as a writer, it was just an easy way for me to tell her life story, but based on just what was on her charm bracelet. So when the book came out, I got myself this charm bracelet, and it just had a heart on it, which if you read the book, it makes sense. And I got one for everybody on my pub team at Putnam. And then, like a month ago, I went to this bookstore, and the bookseller gave me a little dog for my charm bracelet. So now I have a heart and a dog on my charm bracelet, and I'm like, done. I don't need there's no more things that I need. So that's what my charm bracelet is.
Wait, this is so strange. So I wear, whenever I do a book tour, I get an item that is reminiscent either of the character or the book itself. I'm wearing a headstone.
Charm? A headstone charm?
Yeah, no, it's a necklace from this guy who died.
Okay.
It says, here lies Lester Moore.
Okay.
But it's supposed to be like less is more. It's very fast. It's a real guy, and it's so Nina, because Nina goes on this ramble to Georgia. So that's interesting.
I'm sorry. That's epic. That is. I mean, a tombstone around the neck.
We're going to start selling tombstone charms.
Yes.
The Ocean
Yes.
House.
We
Why
need
not?
merch.
Okay,
All the
question.
merch.
We have a question over there. And this is Lorette Kittle. I'm announcing everyone.
I love that
Walker
that
and
you know
Wade
them.
clothing. I am wearing Walker and Wade right now. We have two Walker and Wade dresses here in the house.
Oh my gosh. Oh lordy. Okay.
Okay. She's wearing Walker
So
and Wade.
I have a question for Annabel, but I do want to say, Alex, I cannot wait to start to read your book.
Thank you so much.
Very fascinating. Okay. So, and I did want to say, for anybody who hasn't read, how far away? I never know.
A little closer.
Closer. Okay. For anyone who hasn't read Annabelle's books, this isn't a plant. They are, to me, it's like eating the best caramel dark chocolate with salt on it, because it's just like, they're so good. They're so delicious. Maybe a little red wine, too. Anyway, just to let you know. So, I just finished Summer Romance. Now, I don't even know how to phrase this question,
No spoilers.
It's no, it won't be any spoilers. It won't. It'll make you want to read the book. But I'm a little nervous because your husband is sitting right here. But anyway, I'm just going to ask you. I'm seeing kind of like the three men in each book.
This could get so ugly. Okay.
Maybe you switch to wine.
Wait, I just have to know this. Starting with Leo, who's the movie star. Okay, and then the second guy is the guitar singer-songwriter, and already they all sound really great, you know what I mean? And then we end with Scooter, or dash Ethan, the skateboarder/lawyer. So, but the thing is, they all have this amazing quality that I think that every woman would just fall in love with them. They're just so, like, I don't know what it is, like wonderful. And they're just like, they're really cute and they're like kind of sexy, but they're also shy, and there's something about them that's just so unique, and they all sort of have that vibe. And I just want to know, where the heck is this? Like an old boyfriend that I mean, is this? How do you write about these amazing guys? Is this fiction? I mean, is this out of your? I just need to know.
No, I'm just in a really weird situation right now because my husband doesn't come to these things, but he is here. And it's like, if I say the true answer to that question, he'll literally run out of the room. But like, it does exist that there is a quiet and sweet and sexy man. It's a thing. That is a thing. But the other thing is no, certainly, I know, I'm so sorry. You're going to be so embarrassed. He's be like, I'll never come to another one of these things. I do, really to answer your question, I really do like a nice man. I've never in my life been like, he was so mean to me, I hope he calls. Like, I'm just not that kind of person. Like, the nicer you are to me, the more I'm like, I'm in. And I also think there's a bit of a softness to the men that I write, all three of those characters. And I think it's possibly because I have 3 sons. And having raised 3 sons, like, you can't raise 3 sons and still think that men are really tough. Like, they're not so tough. So I think that's part of it. I think that's just part of, it's like what I'm surrounded by. Like, nobody's like, listen, woman. Like, I just don't, that's not our jam.
Another question?
My men
Here
are
we go.
tough.
We have Jan.
They're tough
Janet
and
here.
they're naked in the cemetery.
Yes, I have tough men.
Hi, I never talk at these things, and I usually never sit in the front row. I'm usually with my camera. This whole summer, thanks to Deborah, and all the authors have been fabulous, and I've learned so much for the last 3 years coming to these, and I'm a better reader now, and this is my night of therapy because I've gone through a lot of hard things, and this was very touching tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I love that.
I'd like to actually
That's so
piggyback on
nice.
that. This concept of death, I do think we need to speak about it more openly. And I think I mean, we're all very raw on this subject. And I think we need to be a little bit more open about that.
It's wonderful.
Thank you
that
for
is
saying
so
that.
nice. That is so nice. That really is.
Susan and Maggie over here finally taught me to sit in
I expect you to be front and center next time.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. Yes, we have one here.
Oh, me. I really want to hear more about your analysis of the signs of people who have passed away. Do they come often? Do they continue to come? I mean, I know you've created your own world with all of this, but I think a lot of us kind of need to feel that we're still connected with people who have passed on, and yes, we can talk to them, we can visit the cemetery, we can apparently have sex at the cemetery,
Yes.
but I want to know.
Your choice. Wait for winter.
But to me, the signs of people coming back to say hello. What's your experience with those? Are they fleeting? Are they part of an everlasting thing, or what's been your experience?
So I'm a jaded New Yorker. Signs. What kind of signs are there? But I want to look for who doesn't want the signs? Everybody wants signs. This next book, fascinatingly enough, is really in one sense everything that you're talking about. In all these different cultures, it really is about, the Day of the Dead is about creating these altars to bring a picture of someone who's passed away. And the more we say their name, the more they believe. The more you say someone's name, the more you show the photo, the more alive they are. And that's how you keep that spirit alive. None of us in that sense really die because they're constantly present. this Parting Stones place that I'm going to is extraordinary. Each person produces almost 60 to 80 stones, and some people take them and they bring them to where they spent most of their time, or you can carry one in your pocket, so you're always got this person with you.
What do you mean produce a stone?
So the ashes, the person is cremated, and then those ashes are turned into stones. But here, are you ready for this?
Okay, shock. For those in Radio Land, we have registered visual shock in the front of the room.
No, wait, it's going to get even better. Every person is a different color.
What?
So they originally thought everybody went into the kiln. Only one person goes into the kiln at a time. And then there's a polisher. But when they take the stones out, that person's stones are all the same color, but if you line them up to other stones, no person is the same color as someone else.
And what's the range from dark gray to light gray?
Someone was black recently, somebody was red, but generally they are all whitish to tannish to grayish.
And where's this custom?
This is in Santa Fe. I'm going to Santa Fe.
Santa Fe.
Okay. I love that so much.
Isn't that fascinating?
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So to think that I could have had a piece of my father on my desk to look at every day.
Paperweight.
Yes.
A paperweight. Who doesn't need?
Who doesn't need a dead paperweight?
I have a story about a sign from my father. My father died when I was 19, and I am well beyond that. Many, many decades beyond that. And I would say that I have not had signs from my father over the decades. And my second book, Ruby Falls, which is gothic, about a little girl who's abandoned in a cave called Ruby Falls, I had sent it to a director I'd done a film with, and I got a lovely email back. And I was talking to my friend Lee, and I said, oh, this is so nice. He's like a father figure. My dad doesn't know anything I've done. He doesn't know about my acting career, my writing career, blah, 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 blah. He certainly doesn't know about Ruby Falls. That day, Lee and I went to this storage unit I have in Stamford because we were looking for this box of, I raise girls. So you take the baby dresses, all the smock dresses, you wash them, you iron them, you put them away, and I wanted this damn box because my granddaughter Annabel was about to outgrow them. So as I'm looking for the box of clothes, a photo falls out. And it's me and my father at Ruby Falls.
Wow. Oh my God.
And it made it into the back of the book. The book hadn't been printed yet. So that to me was a sign. You could say, well, that's a great coincidence.
No.
My friend Leslie is here, who's fabulous and is the PR person for the hotel and is amazing. And we were just talking about, what?
And she's alive.
No, we were talking about signs. And I mean,
keep breathing in and out. Keep it going.
My father's sister passed away during COVID, not from COVID, from lung cancer. And there are not that many butterflies on the Upper East Side. And I have this outdoor space. It's not quite a terrace, but it's far more than a balcony, so I call it a terrace. And it's got a table, and it's got some chairs, but it's definitely, it's for New York, it's sizable. And there was this butterfly, let alone do we see butterfly on the terrace. But this was at 11:03 at night, so I've never seen it. And this butterfly is like banging on the window. And they say butterflies are a sign of someone who has passed away, who wants to say hello, or it's their spirit. And like a moron, I go outside, I'm on the terrace, and I'm yelling at the butterfly, like, I don't know who you're supposed to represent. I don't know if you're my father or my aunt, but I acknowledge you, I see you, thanks for coming. I wanted to come in, I didn't know what was happening. The last thing you want is to be that person.
So then you hear the neighbor like, shut up!
No, but I'm videotaping it because no one's gonna believe me. So, how do you, I don't know how to justify that.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks.
Can I get you anything?
I would have, but I was afraid to let it in. I'm Jewish, I'm like, do I let the butterfly in? What if it wants to nest and make more butterfly? Like, that's more than I can handle. So, but I didn't want to not thank it because, like, that's so rude. And if it is somebody, I didn't want, somebody to be mad and be like, we sent you the butterfly. How could you not have said thank you? So I had to think that was the sign. I'm
there
going
you go.
for sign.
I love it.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hi, my question is for Annabel. I loved summer romance, and I just had a question about Allie being an organizer, because that was one of my favorite pieces of it, I think. And I just was wondering if that was based on your own personal experience, like having a thing about organizing, because I think it was maybe not, but I just was wondering.
Once again, I'd like to invite my husband up to the stage.
Okay, what are you going to say, Annabelle?
So I am really disorganized, and messy, and there are so many inside jokes between the two of us in that book. Just basically the pantry. Like, I just keep buying the same stuff over. Like, just check the pantry before you go to the grocery store, for God's sake. So I am not organized, but I really wanted to write a book about how different our internal lives are from our external lives, and how different your life is than what you put up on Instagram, and how easy it is for all of us to give each other big, bold advice when we're total disasters ourselves. And that was the book that I set out to write. I did have a professional organizer come to my house one time because I had written an essay about my paper piles and like how I couldn't like get through the paper pile. So she offered to come for a couple hours for free if I wrote about her. And I was so hostile to this woman when she was in my house. It was like a learning experience. Like, I was holding up a mirror to myself. I was a beast. I was like, no, I've never used it, but I want it. Like, I was terrible. And so I always thought about those people, like how different they are from me, and really what's wrong with those of us who cannot part with our things. So that's what that was about. It was actually really good for me to write that book. I mean, talk about therapy.
So I want to say one thing about things and death. With my mom dying, I've been going through her things, and it's an extraordinarily meaningful exercise. Someone told me that they were going to try to do this thing called Swedish death cleaning, where you get rid of everything and there's nothing for your children. Don't do that.
Terrible idea.
It's the wonderful things you find. I mean, it's hard. It's hilarious. It's weepy, but save the stuff.
Yeah.
I like stuff.
And you learn things about people based on what they kept.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. Oh, yeah. Well, my mother had this necklace she liked that she got in St. Bart, and she had lost it for years, and I finally hired a jeweler to remake it. And the day after she died, something just told me to go to this closet, lift this thing, look under, and there it was. So I have 2 daughters. So now we have 2 of the same.
That's a sign.
That's a sign.
That's a sign for
and
sure.
with that, thank you, Alix.
Wow.
Thank you, Annabel.
Thank you.
To end on.
Thank you for joining us for this special broadcast of the Ocean House Authors Series with Deborah Goodrich Royce. Please tune in each month as we'll bring you a new Ocean House Authors Series highlighting nationally best-selling and award-winning authors in a salon-style conversation. Hosted by Ocean House owner, actress, and best-selling author Deborah Goodrich Royce. The WCRI is pleased to be partnering with the Ocean House to bring you this ongoing series highlighting the best and the brightest of the literary world. Thank you once again for joining us. And in the words of Margaret Atwood, in the end, we all become stories.